SDK.finance. Hi. Let me show you a demo case of using APIs related to the contract management section. In our system, there are operations in which third parties participate. In this video, we'll see how to create a new vendor and set up commissions for it. If you need to create a new vendor, or, let's say, a third party, you have to use this API. Let's take a look at the parameters that need to be specified in the request body to create a vendor. First, the vendor name must be provided. Second, the getAllowed parameter defines whether it is possible to set the vendor commission to be greater than the system commission. Lastly, the active parameter specifies whether the vendor will be active, true or false. Now, let's execute this request in Postman. You can see that all the fields in the request body have already been filled in. We execute the request, and the new vendor is successfully created with the name specified in the request. Once a new vendor is created, it needs to be linked to the gate. If integration was implemented for the third party, it must be linked to the gate where this integration was built. If no integration is required and it's only needed to reflect transactions in the system, the vendor should be linked to the custom gate. To view the gates that exist in the system, we use a separate API. Let's call this API in Postman. In the response, you can see the list of gates available in the system. Since there is no integration for the vendor created in the previous API call, I will link this vendor to the custom gate. Here is the SDK.finance custom gate, and the parameter custom is set to true for it. To link the vendor to the gate, use this separate API. You need to provide the gate provider ID in the request URL and the gate ID in the request body. The gate ID can be obtained from the response of the API used to view gates, and the gate provider ID can be taken from the response of the vendor creation API. After executing the request, the vendor is successfully linked to the gate. The next step is to create a commission profile. As you may recall from the video where we set up commissions for the system vendor, the process begins with creating a commission profile. The APIs and steps are the same as those used for the system vendor, but this time we'll provide the vendor ID of the newly created vendor in the request. The type will be set to vendor. The first currency ID, flow ID, and active status must also be specified. The operation flow ID can be obtained from the response of another API, which returns a list of all operations. Once the commission profile is created, the response includes its ID, which will be used in subsequent steps. Next, we create a commission rule. Use the API for creating commission rules and provide the commission profile ID in the request URL. In the request body, specify parameters such as begin date and end date. Direction of the commission, IN, the commission is withdrawn from the operation amount. Out, the commission is added to the operation amount. Shared, the commission is shared between participants. Set the rule to active. In Postman, after providing the required fields, the request executes successfully, and the rule is created. The next step is to create a commission rule condition. This API requires the profile ID and rule ID in the request URL. The request body allows you to specify amount ranges, begin amount and end amount. Commission types, e.g., fixed, percent, fixed plus percent, or 0. After filling in the required fields and executing the API, the condition is successfully created with the specified ranges, commission types, and amounts. Finally, we can create a limit for a specific commission profile. Use the API for limit creation and provide the profile ID in the request URL. The request body specifies details such as the type of limit, e.g., amount or transaction count, the time period, e.g., daily, weekly, or monthly, the value and active status. After providing the required fields and executing the request, the limit is successfully created. That's the complete flow for configuring commissions for a custom vendor. That's all. Thank you for your attention.